Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and a never-Trump Republican. Today we're going to be breaking down Stephen Bunnell II, aka Destiny, debating Trump fans. Should be a good time. I'll be pausing intermittently in order to break it down. So without further ado, let's go ahead and pull our favorite lib-cuck, blue-haired debate bro on stage, and let's see what he does.
This is a f***ing invasion. Yeah, I am sick and tired of the lying, of the extortion of Ukraine while they're under war duress from Russia. I am sick and tired of these appointments. RFK Jr. is literally the king of anti-science. Do you guys agree? Some of you? So this is why I brought the anti-Trump tour to the United States. I'm Canadian, and you just got invaded, so rock and roll. 51st state, my ass. So just clip all that and tag Trump in it somewhere. But we're going to be bringing this to every state in the United States, so we hope you guys follow us around. Our next event, well, there might be one in between, but the one we have planned and announced is going to be in South Carolina, Charleston. We are invading with the anti-RFK Jr. tour, which is featuring Professor Dave Explains from YouTube. Do you guys know Professor Dave? Yeah, I love Professor Dave. And with his sidekick, none other than Debunk the Funk Dr. Dan Wilson. So we are invading South Carolina because the child vaccination rates there are going like this. And that scares the shit out of me. It's happening in your country. A lot of it scares the shit out of me. What happens in the United States affects everyone. And there are a lot of Canadians, I'm from Canada, I've already said that are worried about what's going on down here. So I just wanted to make that clear. We've never done anything like this before. Usually it's two best-selling authors and intellectuals on stage having a discussion. We've never had civilians coming up to debate on the Pangburn stage, but we're going to do that today, or members of the general public, I should say. But we are going to do that today. We have 8 debaters in the room here who are brave enough to step on the stage with one of the very best. Destiny's in the house. He is. So,
listen, I'm just going to say it. I like Pangburn already. I like this guy. Obviously, he's Canadian. Obviously, he's worried about this, that, the other. You can call him soy if you want. But what I like about this is he announced the events on Twitter. And this was like during not the peak, but there was like a fever pitch about Stephen, where it was like, oh, Stephen, sexual assaulter, Stephen, sexual assaulter, Stephen, sexual predator, Stephen should be on the list, Stephen should be on the list. And there's just all these replies talking about how big of a piece of shit Stephen is. And then this guy just fucking ignored it for a couple of days. And then guess what? All the people who were talking shit about Stephen being a massive piece of shit, they all fucking disappeared. And so as a result, because they couldn't draw any blood, the events went forward. They created the events. They have Stephen debating people. And as far as I can tell, they're successful. So, dude, sometimes in order to get people to shut the fuck up, you just have to keep doing what you're going to do no matter what. And so, you know, even if you think Stephen is a bad guy, it's undeniable that he is a talented debate person. It's just undeniable. He could be a serial killer and he would still be a talented debater. DD22E says, bro, just show him the Emperor's Children models. He'll be in for life. I might show him all the different factions. And you know, maybe that'll be part of our next conversation. Pavlo Tikhonov says, Connor, all tabletop stuff is cringe and gay. I think I addressed that earlier. Oh my God, shut up. Christian Blair says Zed was not impressed with Jay and Jay became an agent because of K. And that wasn't the point. The point was whether or not there were psychological tests that that Jay passed or that led to him being recruited. And the answer is obviously yes. Even the director says yes. So don't lie to me, Christian Valeris. Randy Chang says you don't have to convince me, Stephen, to play Warhammer. You have to convince him that playing would be more fun than making fun of Warhammer. That's going to be a tough one.
I'm going to call them up one by one once we get Stephen out here and say hello to him. And they're going to get about 10 minutes with Stephen to make their case, and we're going to get some hardcore, hard-hitting debate action, I hope, here tonight. Hello, everyone on YouTube Who loves the Destiny YouTube channel? Yes. I know I love it. I follow Steven and I love watching his streams. We hope you guys come over and subscribe to our channel. We are youtube.com/Pangburn. We've produced some of the largest scale live intellectual discussions that this planet has ever seen. You'll probably have seen the Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris series, the 4-parter. That's our big one. And also, Jordan Peterson hates it when I tell people about his debate with Matt Dillahunty. Don't miss that one. Make sure you watch it. I pump it out there constantly. I won't let it die. He hates that one. Sorry, Jordan. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway.
As a JBP fan, he was on the verge of saying that you could use hallucinogens in order to communicate with God, which was so dope. And then Matt Dillahunty presses him on it, and he kind of backs off of the point before it's even made. And I really wish he just owned it. I really wish Steven or Jordan had just owned the fact that like hallucinogens and it can show you insights about your life. They can show you insights about the world, that meditative states like fasting and meditation, like retreats and all that kind of stuff can give you like religious insight. So the fact that Jordan Peterson didn't just own his shit is actually frustrating to me.
I want to thank quickly Mongoose Films for being.
I am going to fast forward a little bit. I appreciate the intro, but I want to get to the debate.
Trey Salinas, please welcome Trey Salinas to the stage. Give him a round of applause.
Hey, Destiny, I'm Trey. Mic check, good? Hey, thank you all so much for the clap. Destiny, can I shake your hand?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome.
I don't want to mess the cameras up too much, but all right.
Okay. So thank everybody. Thank you for watching. I kind of wanted to talk about the MAGA is a cult thing, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And I want to bring up my argument, I guess, and you can debunk it or deconstruct it however you like. So I think MAGA is more appropriately should be called a culture. When I think of cult, I think of things like the People's Temple, things like the Branch Davidians, or the Moonies, or
What I'm curious for those things, what makes them a cult to you? Why do you view them as cultish?
Yeah. I read the book The Cult of Trump by Dr. Stephen Hassan. Everybody should read it. Republicans too, right? Read it with a grain of salt. Dr. Hassan is critical of Trumpers, but that it's cool. Read it, right?
Okay, Trey, you're too nice. Let's go.
So I think the biggest things he goes off of are the bite model and the influence continuum. The bite model being cults control your behavior. They control the information you intake, your thoughts, and your emotions. And then the influence continuum is like and I'm kind of like being very general because I can't recite the whole book, but influence continuum is like there's a healthy side of a cult and there is an unhealthy side of a cult. Personally, as a Trump supporter, I'm not really, I don't think my behavior is controlled by the MAGA movement, or my thoughts are controlled by the MAGA movement, or neither is my emotions.
Just because you individually are not a particularly deep adherent to the cult doesn't mean that other people aren't showing the same cultish symptoms that you just described.
Or the information I take in. Like I can watch your channel, I can watch other like left-wing channels or independents or whatever. Same as I can also watch Fox News too, right? So with that, I also don't.
DD222E says something important. Also, Connor Baby, I'm 11 books into the horse heresy and having a great time. Excellent.
See the value in calling a cult like a positive thing. I'm kind of leaning more to where like it's just you're not a cult, because cults are very destructive generally, right? If we look back at the etymology of the word, when I did some research, it's like a cult comes from, the word cult comes from cultus, which was Latin, which comes from colere, which Latin and French, and that meant to till. And it's also, that's where we get words like cultivate from too. And then colere in French is anger. It's like a direct translation.
Listen, he's smart and nice, but he's taking way too long. Make a point. punch in and out.
To anger. So that's where I think we get like an emotional attachment to the word cult.
I'm curious, random question. You ever seen Rick and Morty?
No. Maybe like.
All right.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
There's some episode in the first season where they're in like a giant hallucination, and the crude depiction of the hallucination is they're on like a treadmill, and the computer is like generating reality in front of them as they're running. And I think that one of the scariest things when I look at how I guess like the Trump movement operates is it truly feels like Trump can put anything he wants in front of the Trumpists, and there's always going to be a way that it's okay, even if it literally contradicts what came 5 minutes before. So I think a really good example of this is the tariffs and everything surrounding the tariffs. So originally the idea behind the tariffs was to bring back manufacturing, which is a good idea because we want to have domestic manufacturing. So when he announces the tariffs, everybody's happy because it means domestic manufacturing is going to come back. But then when he gets rid of the tariffs, then it's good because it was a negotiation, but I'm not entirely sure what for, because if he's negotiating to trade with a bunch of other countries, well, isn't that not having domestic manufacturing then? And it seems like on my stream, I always call this, you might have heard me say this, like all roads lead to Rome, where no matter what Trump does, there's always a way to justify it. And I think that's one of the scariest, I don't know if you call it a cultish aspect to it, that is frightening to me. Biden had a really disastrous debate performance. Republicans celebrated and Democrats cowered in fear. It was we all felt that. And after that debate performance was so bad that basically the entire Democratic establishment pushed Biden away from running for the presidency again. I don't think that Trump could do anything like that would ever cause Republicans to push him away. And I think that's been demonstrated on at least 5 or 6 different occasions over the past few months.
Adding current context, because we've seen this happen with Iran, Israel as well. So when it comes to the MAGA base, there's a split in thinking. All right. Online, it seems like a lot of his base has rebelled against any kind of intervention on behalf of Israel. And I think that's because they're contrarian freaks. Whereas I think 70% of Republicans, generally speaking, are supportive of Israel, even after like everything that's going on in Gaza. And so as a result, he's actually at like 60, 40, 70, 30, doing something that his base supports. However, if you look at it online, what happens is all the people originally freaked out about Iranian intervention, half of them have made some level of peace with the intervention, saying like, oh, well, Trump did always say that he was going to secure Israel, and he is trying to secure peace by strength, and he's trying to do a limited bombing campaign, so it's okay. Whereas the other half of the MAGA movement is freaking out, and they're like, oh, Trump totally betrayed his base. He's a monster. He's a piece of shit. I can't believe I voted for him, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is that like the people who went hard against Trump, they're now moving back towards he's a 5D genius and I should have trusted the plan. And so 48 hours ago, he was like a monstrous moron. And now he's back to being a 5D genius because they saw the way that their audience reacted to their criticism. And so that's what I don't like about the grifters, to be honest. Hodge twins is what's popping into my brain right now. What I don't like about the Hodge twins is effectively like any criticism they have will be muted by whatever their audience reaction is. They won't stand on business. They won't say, fuck you, I'm right, you're wrong. I don't give a shit if you've been a fan of mine for years. This is true. They won't do that. They'll throw a take out there. They'll see how the audience reacts to it. And if they react positively, they triple down on it. And if they react negatively, then they'll mute it and they'll back off of it. Bakar Baridi says, Connor, if I may ask, why did you start taking the Counterpoints channel seriously only recently? Time, Bakar Baridi. So effectively what was going on is I did not have enough income in order to go full-time. And Valor Media Network is still helping me. I am not a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old with no family. I am a almost 40-year-old with a wife, a mortgage, 2 kids, and 2 dogs. And I prefer that I pay my bills and that I don't go bankrupt. And so while the Warhammer 40K channel took off enough that I was able to get a few $1,000 a month from that, And then Valor was willing to give me some runway in order for me to go full time. I've gone full time, and it looks like we're going to make it work. So it looks like in 6 months, we'll have enough revenue in order to just stay full time and be a creator forever. There's still a small chance that something could go sideways and I'll have to return to the workforce in October, November timeframe. But realistically, I have until October or November to create content, and all the green arrows, they keep going up. They all keep going in the right direction. You guys are very kind in chat. You keep donating. And so as a result, I'm hoping to make this my full-time career. And I hope to effectively announce in October that we're making enough money that this is now my full-time job and I'm not going back to the workforce. Hope that answers your question.
The tariffs one being one of the larger ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm curious, because, and I started kind of asking this question to people, like, is there anything that Trump could do that you think would be over the line for, maybe not necessarily for you, but for over half of the Trump supporters?
Over half. I'm sure there are things, like if he did something crazy, illegal and obvious.
With group, well, I mean, I'm going to say there have been crazy things and obvious things, like not bringing back Abrego Garcia, I would say is pretty crazy.
Well, I'm not too familiar with that one, but
wake up, Trey. Drink your coffee. Let's go.
but we can talk, like, one of the things you mentioned was that they'll always follow him. I feel like as a MAGA Trumper, shout out to Dr. Fafo on the Pangburn universe. I feel like as a MAGA Trumper, right, Trump supporter, I can critique his tariffs and I can be like, that is directly against free market ideology, right? And I don't think the tariffs, I don't think they're permanent. Another thing you said.
Well, here, so this is like, this is a thing I noticed that happened. So if you were to rate the badness of the tariffs on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the president wore a tan suit, and 10 is the president pushed the button to nuke the entire world, how bad do you think the tariffs are on that scale from 1 to 10?
I don't know, maybe 5. Like, the reason why I'm like kind of in the middle on some of these things. So like the tariffs, I know people that want to buy Chinese products, and now they're like, it's
Grassroots says the extra hours doesn't make it transformative. Yeah, that's Grassroots. That's not what makes it transformative. Sorry, I'm bringing in previous comments from earlier in the stream. I'm basically scrolling through and responding to as many chats as possible. Yeah, the extra hours don't make it transformative. It's whether or not the commentary makes it transformative. So, for instance, right now, we're watching the Pangburn debates. Trey Salinas is debating Destiny. But the point of the content I'm creating right now is not to rip this video from Pangburn. If you want to watch it without my commentary, go to Pangburn. But my commentary should be sufficient that it's insightful, it's interesting, it involves thought, and I'm effectively becoming a third person within the debate to the point that the content is transformed by the end of it. That way, it's effectively a new thing. That way, when people want the Pangburn debate, they just go to Pangburn. But if they want my commentary on the Pangburn debate, they come to me. That's what I would view as like an instinctive argument for transformation. T1KO Suave says at Counterpoints, what army do you think Destiny would play? My money is on Eldar. Yeah, I would say Eldar, Dark Eldar. I think he's a Hedonite, so I think he would be Slaanesh, but it's whether or not he fucks with the models, right? Sasha Lynn says, I'm pretty sure his content nuke is 1 hour and 57. I mean, I just took a look at it. It's hour 18. General Ballsack says, Denims is attractive, but dumber than a box of rocks. To be honest, her commentary, I watched some Nick DiOrio commentary. She's not as dumb as I thought she was, but she does have a lot of clips where she just jumps on rakes and smashes herself in the face. I'm going to read 2 more, and then I'm going to let the content play. Kingslayer says, I think Pisco is being bad faith. Tom is saying H3 gave explicit consent for Hassan to stream the nuke, which Pisco is saying explicit consent is equivalent to implied consent. Maybe. Hunter Dombrowski says, intent doesn't matter for a case like this, right? Because it sounds like Ethan's whole case hinges on them intentionally siphoning views. Yes. All right.
It says as expensive as American products, or it's going to be.
Well, I think so. Just on the, so you gave it a 5. I feel like most economists would probably put that anywhere from like a 7 to a 9. in terms of how
Well, yeah. So Grassroots specifies, bear in mind, this is a 30-minute-old comment, but still. Grassroots says, if I watch your entire show in a single shot and then talk for 3 hours, but never commented over the original material, that would also be copyright infringement. I agree.
unbelievably insane the tariff regime is right now. So I noticed it feels like there's kind of a minimizing of the effect that Trump might be having on the United States and the world. And then so you said that was a 5. Can you give me like a single action that you would have been worried about from Kamala, or something that Joe Biden did that you think would be over a 5 in comparison to like the tariffs? Like, what's something you were worried about with Kamala, or something that Biden did that you felt like would have been worse than the tariff stuff with Trump?
Well, I didn't really like the way we exited Afghanistan. It was
Trump set that up.
long coming.
You think
Everybody,
the exit from Afghanistan was as bad as the tariff situation?
well, they're different things, right? Economic and military. I think it was a very bad performance.
Where you go?
Or is hard to look at. I was from the military, so it's really hard to look at that to see like my country put like that. If I can bring it back to the cult thing, though.
Okay. No, wait, one more thing.
Yeah.
That because I'm just curious. Are you familiar with who negotiated the Afghanistan pull-out? Do you think?
Yeah, I've been.
Trump, and he set the timeline, and the timeline was almost immediately after Biden was to assume office, and then Biden had to push it back to August. And not just that, Trump did not include the national government in the negotiations for withdrawals.
Until Trump did the Abraham. No, not the Abraham. It was
The
some.
Doha agreement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That. We could definitely. That's that agreement, right? I don't even want to talk about this, but
Sure, we don't have to. Well, but then I noticed that there's like this. It's just people laughed earlier when you said you weren't as familiar with the Abrego Garcia thing. Is because it seems like in the MAGA world, I personally don't subscribe to that cult model, not because I don't believe it, but I just haven't researched enough on it. But you brought up the I part, which is the information control.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that like, if I were to ask a Trump person about like trans sports, they could give me like 15 different competitions where a trans woman, just won over some cisgender women. But then if I ask like, oh, have you heard about this, this green card or visa holder who was deported with no due process to a slave camp in another country, the only country he was, ordered by our courts not to be deported back to, and it was in violation of a TRO by signing an order on a Friday night and then shipping this guy to the country, like an unbelievable set of circumstances. And it's like, well, I really don't know anything about that. But like in Riley, by the way, and it's just like, it feels like we just moved. It's like, okay, yeah. But same thing with the Afghanistan thing. Like one of the big complaints that Trump had leaving office was that the deep state was, fighting against him, and, they wouldn't listen to his orders. And one of the orders that he reportedly gave was he wanted to draw down everybody out of Afghanistan before he left. And I think it was Mattis that said, we're not doing that. I'm just going to ignore that. So it's just, that's an
Base Mattis. Holy shit, I love Mattis.
interesting issue to have when I feel like the negotiation for the Doha agreement was horrible. More soldiers died in Afghanistan under Trump than they did under Biden during the pullout. And the dead soldiers there is tragic, but man, we were not set up to leave well at all.
And that's my frustration. Although I do think like having a 6-month evacuation thing that ultimately does fall on the Biden admin, because effectively like an evacuation, you have to view it as like a tactical retreat. Like forces have to cover forces who are moving from position to position until eventually you leave. And so the fact that it didn't seem like that was well planned out, there's going to be some degree of chaos. Like you have to pretty much expect it to be like the last helicopter flight out of Vietnam, which was also another very chaotic situation where we withdrew militarily from the South Vietnam, and then South Vietnam held on for like a year, and then they fell apart. So you have to expect some level of chaos, but it did seem particularly chaotic. And I think Biden does ultimately have to own that, even if Trump set him up to fail. KO Dave says, I disagree there. The whole YouTube commentary sphere is creative, not factual. KO Dave, I agree with you. But what I'm saying, though, is that the way that I would view fictional versus factual is fictional, in my opinion. What they're referring to is like creative endeavors, like a narrative. Like Halo is a fabricated universe. It's not real, right? So there's not much education that you can get out of it unless you're a lore fiend, which I would argue is effectively education about, it's like being a historian about a universe that doesn't exist. That's actually my Warhammer content. My Warhammer content is I'm basically a historian for a universe that doesn't exist except for in the minds of people. And so I would say that's a purely creative endeavor. Whereas You're talking about real people sharing their opinions about real events. And so those are things that can be analyzed to be whether or not they're like true, like nonfiction. Anyways, I'm hungry, so I'm going to go grab some cold slices of pizza. I'm going to mute and so enjoy the chair react. But Trey Salinas, no offense, buddy. You seem like a very nice, smart guy. But if you're going to come debate the king of debates, then you need to research your shit beforehand. You need to have like a grasp of the topics. You need to be aggressive, and you need to jump in and out. So, you know, that's my advice to Trey Salinas if he continues to go down this route.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, with the deportation, I think whatever's within the law, whatever the law allows, I'm good with that.
So this is another thing that's really scary to me is when people say whatever the law is, because Donald Trump will tell you what he thinks the law is all the time. So if Donald Trump decides to deport a citizen, and he says, well, I think that in the Constitution it says naturalized citizens don't count as people who like came here and were lawful permanent residents and then were naturalized under citizens, I don't think they count. Then that's the scary part, I think, from our end, is that Trumpers will say, oh, well, you know, as long as it's following the law, and he says it's following the law, therefore he can do that. And it's like, well, in that case, we can basically justify anything. Yeah.
I'm scared of, what do you call it? Disappearances. I don't like that. I've read too many books about that kind of stuff, like
Sure. Okay.
disappearances. So I'm kind of with you on that.
We just record documents right now about the disappearances that are happening in this current administration. But
yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk more about why. Let's do the due process thing, the thing that we're supposed to be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can find some common ground with you on that for sure.
On that note, unless you have another quick question.
There's one thing, because I cut him off a lot. So,
yeah, you bet. Yeah.
One thing. Yeah, sorry, you wanted to bring us back to a point. I'm sorry, and I derailed you hardcore.
No, you're good. You're good. I guess, do you see any merit? Because I probably don't have time to talk about the cult thing, but do you see like any merit to that? Like it being a culture instead of a cult?
The reason why I talk about it being a cult, it has to do with personal experiences I have and then anecdotal experiences of other people's personal experiences, is that the Trump stuff seems to be manifesting in a way that's unlike any other political movement in history. Like sometimes you'd have people and you disagree politically on things, but I've seen so many people now in my own subreddit, I've gotten emails, and I've had it personally happen to me with personal friends where somebody sends you a message and they're like, hey, did you see this thing on Candace Owens? Or did you see this thing on that RFK said? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh God. And inevitably, 6 months later, it'll be like, did you know that Israel not only did 9/11, but they were also in charge of the train derailment? And did you know that blah, blah, blah? And it's like, they're gone. Like, and it's this weird world because people ask me like, how do you get a person out of this? And you have to treat it basically like, I would say like an abusive relationship or a cult, where you can be kind of like supportive and loving, but that's it. There's nothing that you can say or do. There is no fact that can permeate the force field or the shield of all the Trump stuff. And that's I think that's why I view it as a cult. And it's how I think people have to kind of approach people that get sucked into it. But
on a scale of 1 to 10, since you gave me a scaling, maybe I can return it. What do you think? 10 being like the People's Temple and 1 being like it's a right-wing political movement?
Probably 7 or 8.
That's literally what I would have said. I would have said a 7 or 8, because there's people in the Trump movement who are 10s, and there's people in the Trump movement who are 3s. And so the 10s are going to I'm trying not to be vulgar, but they're going to deride no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what Trump does, Trump could have nuked. He could have used tactical nukes in order to blow up the sites and irradiate them, and they would have figured out some way to do it. But that's the thing is, I only think like 10%, 20% of the Trump movement are that sycophantic. I think another 30 to 40% are probably like 7s or 8s, and then another 30 to 40% are 2s or 3s. But the fact that I can talk to my dad and my father-in-law and my stepfather-in-law, and whenever I bring up like the evil shit that Trump does, unironically evil, and all of these men, well, 2 of them are super Christian, and 1 of them is just a good man who lives with like good virtues and principles. And I can be like, we're killing 250,000 people through negligence already. We're going to kill 3 million people through incompetence. We're backstabbing one of our allies, the Ukrainians, and screwing them over in their war against a kleptocratic, oligarchical fucking shithole. Trump's a lying fucking asshole. He's a piece of shit. He still hasn't conceded that he lost the 2020 election. He still lies about it. He did January 6th, etc. I can go through a litany of Trump's sins, and then effectively their response will be, If it happens outside of the United States, it's not our problem. And also, but the Democrats are bad too. That's what I get as a response. And these are like otherwise thoughtful, decent, principled men. It's wildly frustrating.
I think even Republicans admitted when Trump came into office, he wasn't really a strong conservative like at all. His lifestyle absolutely is not conservative, right? He's closer to me than fucking
For sure.
than anything else. So yeah, no, it doesn't seem to be a movement rooted in conservatism at all. And like all of your traditional conservative values are totally absent now, I think, in the MAGA movement. So
He was a Democrat at some point.
Yeah.
But like, so the People's Temple, I don't know if you read too much on that, but like there was a serious thing that happened. It's where the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid." I encourage everybody to read that. Right. Lots of people, almost 1,000 people. Yeah. Like, I don't even know if I could say it.
I would say more people probably died than the Kool-Aid drinkers than people who didn't get vaccinated. I would compare that to.
Well, that's another thing. It's like Trumpers. A lot of Trumpers like didn't take the vaccine, and that's what.
Vaccines now, right?
Yeah, but that's what he made with Warp Speed. Like,
Yeah, kind of weird.
All right, Trey. Great run. Thanks, man.
there you go.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks a lot for Travis, right? That's his name, Travis, for flying me out, man. Good to see. The audience is great here. So Destiny, yeah, thanks guys. Good. So Destiny, I wanted to ask you this, man. You've stated in the past that I guess that the MAGA right is notorious for violence. You've said this. You called them degenerates, etc. That Trump kind of insinuates a lot of the rhetoric and the actions of Trump supporters. Am I more or less correct on that?
I don't usually criticize them for violence. I think I think the tendency, I mean, especially since the BLM stuff, there's more, at least cumulatively, violence for left-leaning people. But I would also kind of expect that right now, given the state of affairs. So.
Oh, okay. So wait, when you say that you expect the violence from the left on the state of affairs,
As in, like, if you have like a certain system where people feel like somebody is completely and totally out of line, and that person is using the power of the executive to be totally out of line, well, they're like, what would conservatives even enact violence about? They would have nothing to protest. They'd have nothing to riot over. I imagine it would be probably more left-leaning people that would be rioting.
that would be right.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like the Tesla burnings that were happening, it was all premeditated. They had the Doge, DogeChase.com or something like that kind of premeditated all that. So, like, my thing is that when I look at the Trump election and how he got elected, and maybe I can ask you this, I think one of the reasons that Trump got elected in the first place was because when you say, like, for example, with your other opponent here, when you say the MAGA right is a cult, I'm thinking in my head that the Democratic Party at this point is actually a cult as well, you know, regardless of what it is. Now,
Who's our cult leader?
oh, well, here's the thing. I don't know who the cult leader is, but it's the
Wasn't it kind
Democratic
of
Party as a whole, right? No, well, here's the thing. It could be a cult without it because, like, for example, vote blue no matter who. You've heard that phrase, right? The anti-Trump tour, like we're on right now. It's a cult that's against Trump no matter what, right? So we've seen this to where Elon Musk at one point had the Tesla vehicles that a lot of left-wing people were buying. Then, of course, Elon Musk wasn't necessarily supporting Trump at first. He was a Ron DeSantis guy, etc. Then he turned to Trump. Then we saw that after he supported Trump and he donated it to him, we saw a lot of the left wing kind of burn down Teslas and be violent about this, right?
Well, I don't really think that was the only thing he did. I think it was also the fact that he joined Trump as an unelected bureaucrat and began unilaterally shuttering federally approved agencies in the government while, like, engaged in the most insane over-the-top rhetoric on X.
What's the most insane over the top?
Like constantly calling for judges to be impeached or imprisoned, or saying that
Which judges? I'm not too.
the recent judge that just made a ruling related to basically anytime a new TRO gets issued, I think maybe he's done it for the Zini.
Yeah, he's called people traitors. He called Mark Kelly a traitor to the United States because Mark Kelly posted on social media that he was supportive of Ukraine. Yeah, this is the total cope thing. I'm sorry if I'm not engaging as much. Number one, I'm eating, but number two, like, it is frustrating because it feels like these are the most tepid Trump voters ever who don't seem particularly informed, which is why this might be kind of a bust of content. I'm still gonna watch it because obviously, like, you know, Steven might be able to pull out a moment or two that are pretty interesting. However, if you don't know shit, why the fuck are you talking about it? You know what I'm saying? Like I hate to be that callous about it, but if we bring up, if people in the political arena bring up Kilmar Abrego Garcia, oh, I don't know about that. Well, here's what's happening with the tariffs. Oh, well, I kind of know about that, and I think this is good, but that's bad. That's not very insightful or interesting or a good analysis or anything. And then now we're at like the most surface level analysis of Elon Musk stuff. And I have to say, this is my problem. Like, this is why people ask me, like, Connor, why aren't you a Democrat? And it's like, because Democrats oftentimes used to appeal to populist rhetoric, used to appeal to the downtrodden masses as the reason why, their raison d'etre, their reason of being. And no offense, I'm an elitist in some ways. I think the average peasant of the United States, God bless you, God bless all the peasants who work their asses off every single day paying their bills. I don't think they know shit about politics, and they should shut the fuck up. That's what I think. I think that if you're going to vote, you should have to pass a minimum civics test. And you're like, oh, well, that's disproportionately going to affect all the minorities, and that's going to disproportionately affect people with low IQ. I don't give a fuck, right? Because if you can't pay attention to basic current events, if you don't know what the words mean on the things that you're voting for, you shouldn't participate in politics. You're actually fucking stupid, and you make politics worse, because in order for politicians to get elected, they have to appeal to you, and you are the least common denominator. So frustrating. So anyways, it used to be Republican to be elitist. Now it's Republican to be populist. Very, very frustrating state of affairs. But Sneeko Elbow asks, what are your chud takes? I would say that's one of them. I'm relatively speaking an elitist when it comes to like civic engagement. I love guns. I want to invade Central America and South America and create the greater United States of the Americas. I think Europe is filled with cucks, and they need to militarize in order to fight Russia. I think that American hegemony is based. I think that mixed economy capitalism and liberal republicanism it's the greatest political ideology on the face of the planet at this time in history. I think that authoritarian communists can suck a bowl of butts. I think that Islamists and jihadists, specifically jihadists, people who engage in military struggle on behalf of theocratic Islam, I think they should be drone striked, and I don't care that they get killed. You know, I think trans people should be able to participate in sports, but I think they need to shut the fuck up about competitive and combat sports. Like, I love trans people. I got plenty of trans friends. But do you want to have the rights to transition as an adult, and maybe to be able to transition as a teenager in concert with a doctor in parental consent? Or do you want to have all of your rights stripped away and be treated as social pariahs and hunted by MAGA death squads? That's obviously an exaggeration. But I'm just saying, like, pick your fucking battles. And if you had to boil down the way that I feel about progressives, I think they get in their own way, and I think they're annoying as hell. And I think that whatever good they could produce for the world, they're so counterproductive, they end up hurting themselves. So there's some chud takes for you. I'm going to read a couple of chats just because, again, I'm waiting for the MAGA dudes to actually say something substantive. Tom Foolery said it has nothing to do with logic trap. I said all the same stuff in my initial review. Okay. Grassroots says based. I like that option. Lol. Scrolling. Bread Bowl says, here as a curious Hutch Steven fan, thanks for filling the early morning void duder. Happy to serve. Tom Foolery show says, I'm suing Connor. Based. Vesman81 says, spite is an excellent motivator. True. That's why I get up every single day. Tax Please says, same as if you're chill with a cop, it may be a chill interaction. If you're a dick, that good faith charity is gone. True. Ben Dole says, at Tom Foolery Show, if someone intended to steal a car from a dealership, did it, and then the publicity the thief did showcasing the car benefited the dealership, that would be fine. Got caught. That's 1-to-1. Ben Dole, it's an interesting analogy, but I think the reason why we have to remember that this isn't a criminal infraction. It's civil, right? They're not being sued for theft. They're being sued for copyright infringement. So they're being sued for kind of theft because they're taking somebody else's property and using it in a way that they don't have explicit permission for. However, you have to bear in mind there's exceptions such as fair use. So if, in my opinion, bear in mind I'm not a legal expert, but if Denims and Frogan did, like, they might have fair use arguments. If their commentary is transformative, then they didn't steal because they're participating under a fair use exception, such as, well, actually, they're operating under a copyright exception, such as fair use. Guy D Nuts says, your Men in Black take is crazy. Why would I say it was nice shot though, unless he knew he fucked up in the shooting part? He didn't fuck up. He had a great shot. Shouldn't he have said, y'all dumb and it's a perfect shot? You guys have autism. I'm just going to say it. Large swaths of DGG has massive fucking autism. Silver Jacket Man for $10. Yes, only respond to super chats. What I have to say is more important because I have money. Although you will have to rename the stream the Grassroots Hegemon Power Hour if you do. True. General Ballsack says, catch up at Counterpoints. We're all suing you. Nope. Polarized says, I can't wait to hear Peace go see those statements over, under on him, only looking at the cut statements at first. No shot. He looks at the full context. He's bad faith. Okay. Anyways, let's get back to the content.
Lawyer, I think he's in it for Brasberg. But he tweets about judges.
So he wanted to get them removed because
he doesn't like it when they issue a TRO against Trump. But wait, just real quick, you're not familiar with Elon engaging in any like anti-judicial rhetoric on X?
Sorry, we're hitting a channel record right now. There's 250 people here. Like the stream, super chats if you got it, memberships if you got it, and then also type in Valor Media Network into your search bar. Valor Media Network, VALOR Media Common Spelling, Network Common Spelling. I'm live there Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And today, on Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel. But if you want to hang out with me in the mornings, go over to Valor Media Network, subscribe.
I know Elon Musk has stated that he doesn't like these individuals, which is fair enough. He has his opinion, right?
But it's not just his opinion, right? He's like the richest man in the world. Who's
sure, but you have an opinion too. Like, for example,
I'm not an elected official. I don't work in government.
Well, you have a huge influence when it comes to your audience, right?
Yeah, but I don't work in government.
Yeah, but what does that matter? Like, here's the thing.
Well, if I was part of the government and I was calling for another part of the government to be destroyed,
but I would make an argument that influencers and even actors, etc., actually have more influence on the public than even politicians.
Than most politicians.
And most, yeah.
But Donald Trump, because he's a cult leader, probably not.
But even with you, I think you have more influence than on the public than most politicians.
Individual, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah,
probably true. That's what
most for sure, especially city council.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, when you say, "Well, I don't work in government," at the same time, I could say, "Yeah, but you have more influence on the public than most politicians." Right?
No, I agree. I was just pointing out why people would probably have such a visceral reaction to everything Elon Musk has done. I think it's super warranted that people would feel horrified by it.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. Okay, I get you there. But I wanted to shoot this back here. When you were stating that, when I was stating that one reason that I think that Donald Trump specifically won this election was also because I think that the left, like you admitted earlier, is notorious for violence, right? We had the BLM riots, the Chaz that happened, right, in Seattle, the Tesla burnings. So I think a lot of the people that voted for Trump was also noticing that the left is absolutely lunatics when it comes to this type of rhetoric. And Maxine Waters, even in 2016, when she was, when Trump won his first term, where she was saying, get in the face of MAGA supporters. When I was, because I'm from South Texas, I would wear a fucking MAGA hat at a bar, and I was getting attacked by people that didn't like that. You know, I think this is what drove a lot of people towards Donald Trump to vote for him. Wouldn't you say?
I mean, it's possible. But
don't you think it's kind of a big deal, though?
No, because I think that they don't talk about any of the violence that their side is ever supporting, either explicit or implicitly, at all points in time as well. So how am I supposed to feel bad that people are complaining about Tesla dealerships being burned down, but then they're clapping when people are being deported without due process from this country? I have absolutely no sympathy. And the fact that they can keep doing this hand wringing of like, the left is so bad and they won't disavow these people, even though the left has to disavow its own side all the time. When Biden,
I don't see any of the left doing that, though.
I don't.
Okay. This is why I like being a center-right chud, because I can say wholeheartedly, BLM evaporated all its political capital through riots and violence. All the police reform that we could have done, universal body cameras. I don't like 8 can't wait, but there's probably 3 or 4 of them that I think we could implement in an intelligent way, completely reforming the culture of what a law enforcement does with edged weapons and making it more European. I think that you could actually get police buy-in for that. field social workers. There's actually half a dozen to a dozen policies that could have come out of BLM that progressive and leftists were too psychotic in order to try to actually push for. And so they spent all their political capital on just like fundraisers, bailouts for protesters, and riots. And so as a result, BLM went nowhere. And I blame progressives. I blame leftists for that. They didn't actually think about the policies they wanted to implement. They were so busy protesting and rioting that they didn't accomplish anything. So good job, dumbasses. Then when it comes to Chaz Chop, another, that's a crazy thing for a city to just concede, you know, a few dozen blocks to protesters and rioters until half a dozen people get murdered. And then after the people get murdered, then they come in, right? Like that's fucking crazy. And that's only possible through left-wing lunacy. But since I'm not MAGA, I also don't have to sweep for the right either. I can say that when the right wing is violent and they do a mass shooting, it's fucking crazy. They kill a few dozen people. Think about Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof is the perfect example of somebody who freaked out and did something crazy. Then also when it comes to January 6th might not have been as quote unquote violent or damaging as the Summer of Love. But guess what they were actually trying to do? They were trying to, without proof, delay or change and overturn the election of the United States. That's fucking crazy. And we've had 5 going on 6 years to prove that there was massive fraud related to the 2020 election, and Donald Trump has not proven it in court, or more importantly, out of court. If Donald Trump showed me a list of people who were verifiably dead or non-citizens to the tunes of millions of votes that changed the course of the election, I would change my tune. I'd be like, oh, Donald Trump is the most oppressed person in all of politics. He's the second coming of Christ. He's a 5D genius. I just couldn't see it before. But that hasn't happened. And the reason why it hasn't happened is because he's a fucking liar.
Well, I don't know how much you're looking at.
Well, I watched your show.
Okay, well, Biden
Example,
literally.
you didn't even disavow the assassination of Donald Trump, bro.
I wish it was the assassination attempt. Okay.
Oh yeah, the assassination.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey, but am I right there, Destiny? Come on, man. Come on,
just
man.
Jokes.
Hey,
Just jokes. Just jokes. So you can have a standard for my behavior. You can talk about whether my behavior is over the line or not. But I think it's very different when you compare the behavior of somebody in government versus me, who's like a pundit.
You're a guy that has more influence than politicians. That's my
Yeah, but it's a different type.
and the vast majority.
It's a different type of influence, though, right?
What's the difference?
There's a different expectation for behavior for things that that I would have versus somebody who's part of the government. Would you agree, or do you think it's the same?
I would agree that your influence would actually affect people's behavior more so than some random person.
No, it's not. It's about the expectation of like behavior or what would be proper. So if I was an elected official and I was working in the executive branch, it means something a lot different for me to say I hate this judge than if I was just like a pundit and I was like I hate this judge. I think
Right.
Those are so you can have a totally different standard expectation of behavior regardless of how many people you influence or not, just based on the role that you occupy.
Yeah. Well, I get you there, but like my point is that I think you have way more influence than the vast majority of politicians. So that's why I'm saying like when you shoot the rhetoric when Corey, fucking don't even remember the guy's last name, Corey something, I don't know, but he passed away and you were stating something and you doubled down on Pierce Morgan. You said, fuck Corey, fuck his supporters, etc. I think also with your rhetoric, when you were stating that stuff, I think that leaned a lot of people watching that sit and said, Destiny's a fucking psychopath. I don't want to vote for Kamala Harris or the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but at some point,
all right, let's break this down, okay? I'm gonna go full screen for this. Some people are not gonna like this. That's okay. Stop being pusillanimous, okay? What I mean by that is everybody, including me, thought it was based when Stephen came out and said, if white dipshit militias have to gun down protesters who are setting buildings on fire at 10 p.m. at night, then at this point they have my blessing. The rioting needed to stop. It needed to stop a long time ago. And so a lot of lefties chopped off that quote right at protester because they didn't want to admit what Stephen was describing extemporaneously was arsonists. But I, a center-right guy, I love rooftop Koreans. I think Kyle Rittenhouse is based. I think that going out into your community with a rifle in order to make sure that businesses aren't vandalized, and if people physically attack you, you kill them, I don't care. And so when Steven said that, I was like, based lol. And I can't remember the exact timeline, but I have to figure this was around the Rittenhouse stuff because it that had to be the context. I'm not saying it was, but I think it was the context. And so as a result, there was 3 dead people there, or like 2 dead people and 1 injured people. I think there was the guy who hit him with a skateboard who caught around to the chest and died. I think there was another person who ran up on him and got shot and died. And then there was the guy who got his arm blown. Oh, and then there was the pedophile who charged him and got killed. I don't care. I have no emotion. I'm saying this to you. 3 people are dead. I have 0 emotional reaction. I don't give a shit, right? I don't care that those people are dead because to me, they kind of got their just desserts. The guy who charged him charged a man with a rifle and he got shot. I don't give a shit. The other people saw a man with a rifle running away. Now they thought he was a mass shooter, whatever, but they didn't use the context clues in order to realize he wasn't a mass shooter because a mass shooter would be trying to gun down everybody around him. If Kyle was turning towards everybody that he could see and firing at them, and then those people charged and got killed, I would call them fucking heroes. But that's not what happened, right? Kyle was running away, ignoring everyone else, and then they tried to tackle him. And he defended himself. I don't give a fuck. No skin off of my ass. I don't care about it at all. And so if I'm going to have that level of callous disregard for human life in reference to BLM rioters, then when Donald Trump tries to steal the election in 2020, when he breaks up families, and I'm saying breaking up families in reference to the Muslim ban, where he just did the blanket Muslim ban and then a bunch of families got divided between their countries of origin and the United States, when he mismanages COVID, which leads to hundreds of thousands of deaths, when he tries to steal the election, when he's coming back and he's promising that he's going to fuck over Ukraine, he's promising that he's going to take a hatchet to the government, which is probably going to kill tons of people, when he's not disavowing his previous claims of, usurpation or insurrection against the government, and somebody takes a shot at him, it's no skin off of my ass. And if you're the kind of person who supports that guy, then again, like your death is no skin off of my ass. So Republicans and conservatives, if you want to clutch your pearls when Stephen is talking about like Trump supporters getting domed, but then you're like, haha, based when BLM supporters get domed, I think you're being inconsistent. And I'm not that inconsistent. I'm going to read a couple of chats before we get back into it. Bakar Buriti says, I didn't realize how young Queeman was until a face cam stream. I won't take that kid seriously again. Laugh my ass off. Well, I think that's why he doesn't do a face cam stream as often. But I would say young people can be intelligent. They just don't have a lot of experience. So don't mistake youth with being unintelligent, and don't mistake experience for intelligence. Vesman81 says, smart people are good at coming up with reasons for why they believe things. Yeah, that's actually the irony of being very intelligent is you can post hoc rationalize a lot of your bad behavior. Jonah Boy says court drama streams could be fire content. Well, yeah, but it's got to be like court and testimony, not reading transcripts. Deus Halcyon gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, King. Very much appreciated. And then Zero says at Counterpoints, why does Pisco keep bringing up the vindictive statement? Isn't that irrelevant if they actually committed a crime? Yeah, 100%. I think that all that Pisco is doing is he's just trying to argue that he's not properly motivated, right? That's all he's arguing, is that Ethan Klein isn't properly motivated. Channel record, we're at 270 viewers. Thank you, Kings. Thank you, Kings and Queens. Please like the stream. Super chats if you got it. Memberships if you got it. Enjoy the content. And then what I was going to say too is type in Valor Media Network, VALOR Media, MEDIA, Network, common spelling. If you're enjoying the content today, you'll enjoy the content tomorrow. You'll enjoy it the next day, and you'll enjoy it the next day. I'm live on Valor Media Network Monday through Friday, and on Tuesdays, I'm live on Counterpoints.
At some point, it like, I don't want to change the diaper of a 25-year-old. Like, for somebody to go online and to be making like all of these jokes, as Dave Rubin had, and he was on that episode with me, about the guy that the psychotic dude, that broke into Pelosi's house and was like with a fucking hammer was smacking this dude. It was insane and unhinged. And then again, to like have the tears whenever it happens on their side, I think I would rather be unhinged and force the conversation than have to live in this world where the left constantly has to apologize for all of its own stuff and the right pretends that nothing ever happens on their side. Because like the same,
the opposite there.
What?
Yeah, I'm thinking the opposite there, Destiny. Like, it's
What Donald Trump came in and he pardoned every single J6er and nobody on the right cared.
Yeah, well, look, the thing, Joe Biden pardoned his entire family and like, what is it, 8,000 people before he left office.
So the
Whataboutism?
large so two different things. The large swaths of people that were pardoned, that was like a technicality for commuting sentences.
Do you agree that Hunter Biden should have been pardoned?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Fuck that. Listen, you can say that the Trump admin would have been vindictive against Hunter Biden. So as a father, you understand why Joe pardoned his son. But I think it's inarguable at this point that Hunter Biden committed tax fraud and a firearms violation.
And I think that because he has no tact or political understanding whatsoever, Donald Trump proved it when Donald Trump complained on, I think it was a NBC interview, and he said, I can't go after any of the people on the J6 Select Committee because Biden pardoned them.
Well, yeah, that's true, though, right?
Yeah, but
it's not like he's lying in there. He can't go after them.
He wanted to go after them politically. There are no crimes here. He just wants to target, when we've seen this administration, would you agree, has engaged in the targeted lawfare.
I would say that even the Biden administration had the targeted lawfare against Donald Trump as well.
And what, give one example of that.
Okay, well, for example, what's her name? When the judge went after Donald Trump's real estate, right? He said his real estate over there in Florida,
Mar-a-Lago, and he did inflate the value times like 1,000. The argument from the Trump side is that there was no victims because Donald Trump successfully paid back all the loans he took on the inflated value of his properties, and New York didn't care. And so it was kind of like on a, I don't know, it's kind of like catching Al Capone on tax evasion. You know what I'm saying? It didn't really feel like you were actually getting to the heart of Trump's wrongdoing because you could catch him on something smaller. I'll admit that that's what it's felt like.
Lago,
yeah, that shit. It was worth $18 million, right? We can see from the papers that shit's worth at least $600 million. They're going after his real estate to kind of backtrack on him.
Well, yeah, but wait, what does that have to do with Biden?
Well, because it's targeted prosecution.
But it's not
because you asked me the question. Give me.
No, I asked you. Show me an example of that. Donald Trump is writing executive orders, literally targeting.
I'm answering your question though, Destiny. You asked me, give you an example of that.
Biden doing it.
Well, the Democratic Party. Remember, you guys are the vote blue no matter who party. You guys are the cult of that, right? It's not like you guys go after Donald Trump. When it comes to the Republican Party, it's kind of, I would say, probably 70-30, where it's like MAGA and then Republican, right? Your Nikki Haley's, Mike Pence, etc., the ones that don't support Donald Trump. So it's kind of more divided than the Democratic Party. You guys are a lot more united on that, right?
Donald Trump literally like ejected his entire.
When it comes to Trump, guys, when it comes to,
I'm happy he feels that way, to be honest. That guy describing the party as like 70% MAGA, 55% MAGA is the stats that I saw, but 50 to 70% MAGA, and then 30% still Republicans who are hopefully principled. I'm happy to hear anybody else describe it that way. I'm putting a Discord link in chat because KO Dave said, is there somewhere I can post my fair use analysis you asked for? It's too long for YouTube chat. I just posted in Discord. So you can either post it in one of the Discord chats or you could message me on Discord.
To Trump, everybody from the progressive side, from the liberals, all of you guys are anti-Trump. I mean, this is just
true. The guy sucks.
But I mean, like, wouldn't that make sense if the guy is so divisive and the Republicans are super pro-Trump? Like the approval rating.
You mean the MAGA Republican?
No, I mean Republicans. I mean,
like Nikki Haley's super pro-Trump.
Yeah, they all support her.
No, she's not, dude.
You can say that, but Donald Trump, the only thing that was buoying his approval for so long was the fact that on the Republican side, literally no matter what he did, it was like 88%, 92%, 87%, 90% approval. Like, yeah, it had a pretty wide support from the majority of the Republican Party.
No, yeah, for sure. But like,
but just on the thing. So like, because I can think of several horrible like legal targeting things that Donald Trump has led, but can you think of anything that Biden or Biden's administration, so not a judge in Florida, but like something that Biden ordered? Because that judge could just be an asshole judge, right? It's not necessarily Biden on that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to the Democratic, I'll tell you this: Biden, of course, he was the face of the Democratic Party for 4 years, right?
Yeah,
you can say that. Also, the Democratic Party as a whole, that's what I'm saying. Where you guys are a lot more notorious for violence, and that's why I'm saying my point here is that a big reason why Donald Trump won that election, not only because of the assassination attempt, right, which you said you wish the bullet hit him, that would have been the best thing. Didn't happen, thank God.
I didn't say those words exactly, but
well, something along those lines. I think you said it with Rob Noor or somebody along those lines. I can't remember exactly.
You got about a minute, Jake.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. But my point is that I think that with that type of rhetoric, along with, for example, you guys lying about Joe Biden's, mental health, right? That was another big one. Jake Tapper on CNN.
Why do you assume that people lied about his health and weren't just either coping or?
Well, even well, that's my point here. Even Jake Tapper.
Wait, you can't say that.
Jake Tapper is literally writing a book about how he covered up, CNN covered up Joe Biden.
If there was a coordinated effort to cover up Joe Biden's mental health, why did they let that debate happen?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You
can't just say that.
They let it happen.
That totally contradicts the entire narrative.
This is why they let it happen specifically because they let it happen. They let him train for like what, a week or something like that by himself. They wanted to prep him for that because they can't avoid a debate.
Of course, Trump dodged the debate when he was running. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, Biden, that's the thing. They let Biden debate. He got totally smashed, right? But
I don't understand how if there was a whole coordinated effort to cover up Biden's senility, why would they ever let it?
Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I disagree with this shit vociferously. I'm going to answer a question in chat and then I'm going to talk about it. KO Dave says, how the F do you even determine if one religion is superior to another? In its outcomes and its moral prescriptions. If you have an Aztec an Aztec religion that says that in order to sacrifice to the blood god, in order to have a good harvest, you have to slaughter babies by cutting out their guts and then cutting their throats and then pulling out their guts and spilling it everywhere. That's obviously not as good as Jainism, as an example. That is a pacifistic religion that tries to minimize your consumption of other sentient beings. So you evaluate religions based off of their outcomes and their prescriptions. It's actually not hard. Only, KO, you might be not used to like somebody applying like an Evo psychoanalysis to religion, but it's actually not hard to determine which religions are pro-social and anti-social. Then, when it comes to what's being said, this is going to be a differentiation between Steven and I. I'm not just going to sweep for Biden and the Democrats, okay? Biden was too fucking old the first time around. People were just pissed that Trump had mismanaged COVID and the economy was in the shitter. That's all that happened. And then Biden had a pretty anemic presidency, which that's what I wanted. I wanted an anemic, managerial presidency in order to just deal with COVID and try to get us out of it. And that's what he did. But the economy was so anemic that people went back to Trump as a fight. But I'm not going to pretend that Biden, when he was talking about kids playing with his leg hair in a pool, or corn pop, this old bad mama jamma from the neighborhood, or him stumbling off of random stairs, or him staring into the distance, I'm not going to cope and say that that didn't affect the way that people perceive him, and he was too fucking old to run. He was just too old. The Democrats picked a bad horse. If they wanted Kamala, they should have picked her a year earlier. They should have sat Biden down and said, hey, man, we know you're really passionate about running, but realistically, we think it's time for you to go out to pasture. So go chill the fuck out, retire, have a good time, and we're going to run a younger candidate. And they should have given him the business. And instead, they waited for him to get his shit kicked in on the debate stage in order to do the same thing. And by then it was too late. And then Kamala had to, within like a year, less than a year, she had to sprint from her 2019 giga progressive primary cringe tapes to being a moderate Biden successor, while also not owning the fact that she was a continuation of Biden. It felt totally toothless and hypocritical and all over the place. So sorry, not sweeping for the Democrats in this regard. Steven can have fun doing this. I'm not going to follow him in this rhetorical gambit.
Before, they couldn't hold it up for so long. They let him debate. They had to do it eventually.
What? No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
well, then that's going to make them look bad. when
Didn't
it comes
Donald
to the
Trump
election.
avoid a second debate with Kamala? Didn't Donald Trump avoid debating any of the
He didn't.
Nikki
He didn't
Haley
need to-
or
he didn't need
DeSantis?
to debate Kamala, bro.
This is the all roads lead to
Well,
Rome
no,
thing,
it's
right?
not,
See, he can
because-
do the
well,
exact
here's
same
the thing,
behavior you say that Biden couldn't get away with doing.
Well, Destiny, look at it like this, dude. You're a top tier debater. Why would you, unless you get something? In other words, debating me, you get nothing out of this, right? The only thing that gets something out of this debate is me, right? So when Trump is gonna debate Kamala for
Well, that's not totally fair. Steven gets content.
the second time, he gets nothing out of that. At that point, Joe Biden looks like a moron. The assassination attempt already happened. The only thing Donald Trump has to do is just fuck it. I don't care to debate Kamala because he feels he already has the debate in the
I
past.
understand the
Doesn't
True.
political
that.
savvy that goes into this,
Well,
to the
yeah,
calculation, but I'm just saying that
why he avoided that second debate.
yes, and you're giving me the logical reason, but when we look at Biden doing a debate, if he was truly being covered for by the entire Democratic establishment, then it stands to reason that they would find reasons for him not to do the debate.
Yeah, but they had to do it eventually, right?
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They can just say we don't do debate.
Or else it would have looked weak as shit. Like, listen, man, I'm sorry. I agree with the MAGA guy here. If Biden was walking around in meetings, mixing up people's names, staring off into distance, exiting off of stages in the wrong direction, walking slowly, tripping on stairs, talking about his leg hair in pools, sniffing small children, all that bullshit adds up. And if he's not willing to debate at all, then people would have assumed that he was senile as fuck. So no, I'm with the MAGA guy. Sorry to say it, Steve. Sorry, hard disagree.
He's too divisive.
Okay, and then they're gonna lose the election. This is why it's like
They lost anyway, no?
And yeah, they lost anyway, so sure. So it didn't work. But that's what I'm saying. I think the Democratic Party probably should have got rid of Biden earlier and then put in Kamala Harris, which by the way, nobody here voted for Kamala Harris to be the representation of the Democratic Party.
Sure. So
Even
let's
though
say
Trump is obviously the threat to democracy there.
well,
right?
because in 2020 he tried to make it so none of the votes mattered, and he could just have Pence say who won the election. I would say that's probably worse. The issue with the story, the narrative you're giving, is that like, how is it that the Democrats were all in lockstep? Like, there's two stories.
Okay.
Either people were genuinely torn on like, is he just old? Is he actually senile? What's
I'm sure people were torn, by the way.
going on? And they just kind of like kept it going, because why would you take out a person who just beat this guy in the last election? Why would you
There's an incumbency argument. I'll concede that.
run somebody different and get rid of your incumbent advantage and get rid of a guy already beat like that? That's a really
Probably
extraordinary
because
thing to do.
he has mental health
That's
issues.
fine, but like,
That would be
were they genuinely confused about that, or was there a top-down plot to cover up how senile he was the
Sure.
entire time that
Yeah.
went through all of the media and all of the presidency, but they weren't strong enough to just not have one debate?
So hold on. So I feel like Steven is being a little bit obtuse here, but that's okay. I'll try to explain my perspective. Within politics, similar to the online debate space, you're gonna have cliques, right? You're gonna have orbiters, and so there's gonna be Kamala is an orbiter of Biden, and there are going to be people who support Kamala more than Biden and people who support Biden more than Kamala. And Biden, because he has seniority, incumbency, he was the vice president to one of the most popular presidents in the world, he's going to have a lot of internal momentum over Kamala. However, there's always going to be this friction with Kamala because she's younger, she's a state attorney, she's more articulate than Biden at this point, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be this push for Kamala to take the reins of power, right? And so what people are doing is there were people in Kamala's orbit who were probably pushing for her to take the throne. There were people in Biden's orbit who wanted him to keep all the advantages because, let's face it, he's an incumbent, Obama's VP, et cetera, et cetera. And so they fought over who was going to run in 2024. And what ended up happening was there were orbiters who were outside of that who split between the perspectives and then fought over it in the background. So all it is Twitch and YouTube political clout farming at the highest degrees possible. That's all that happened. If you want to understand real politics, then understanding Twitch and YouTube clout games is actually a pretty good indicator of how this shit works. Joseph Adams says, hey dude, enjoying your streaming community. I would love to share tips. Add me up on the Discord name virtualledge07. Well, I'm streaming right now, so you can add me. I usually like Dan, but I don't know why he's so mean to Connor. Well, because I only have anti-Semitic jokes there, so I'll skip it. Dan doesn't like being called out for anything. True. He's the boss's friend. I'll be super fucking mean. Somebody said that shit, and I was like, oh, that's it. Everyone's there for Steven, right? Steven is charismatic. He's intelligent. He's funny. He might have done crazy sex shit, but, you know, that's Steven, right? Maybe he's a sociopath. Maybe he's a psychopath. Maybe he's a serial killer. Who knows? He's entertaining. So everybody wants to be there for Steven. Dan can be smart, can be insightful, can be fun, but he's the boss's friend. And so he throws his weight around as if he has the authority of the boss, but he's not the boss. He's just the boss's friend. So he can be like, oh, we're going to do it this way. Forethought, you're fired. Fuck you. Get out of here, et cetera, et cetera. But Steve's like, no, you don't have the authority to make that call. And then they just piss and moan and fight until Dan gets his way, which, by the way, seemed kind of childish in my opinion. But anyways, the point is, he's not the boss. He's the boss's friend. And that's the tension. Vesman81 says, the entire fire pit thing started with what is more common in backyards, fire pits or pools? I would say fire pits are infinitely more common than pools. Outer Drive says, who fucking cares? And I made fun of him before. Does a chimera count or does a chimney count? No fucking idea. No idea. I'm going to skip, unless you at Counterpoints me, I'm going to skip all the fire pit shit. Patriarch says, I have a fireplace, have used it like 3 times in 15 years. Exactly. Yep. Scrolling past fire pit. All right, I'm going to play this while I scroll.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, here's the thing, Jake Tapper. And here's the thing: you want to paint the picture to where it's like, okay, they wanted to cover it up. Even Jake Tapper in CNN, who is writing a book about this called "The Cover Up" on Joe Biden's health.
Do you normally cite Jake Tapper on things you believe, or just in this one time?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I watch CNN plenty of
Lol.
times, man. I watch.
Do you
CNN,
normally
I watch
cite
yourself,
CNN as a
etc.
credible source, as like a?
I could cite him at times. Yeah, sure. When the argument's here, I'm just saying Jake Tapper had inside information. Wouldn't you say that Jake Tapper had better information than you?
Without even reading the book, my guess is going to be what he's saying is that people saw Biden and they tried to give him favorable coverage because they weren't sure and they didn't want him to look bad, but not that they genuinely thought that it was like a lost cause and he was super senile and they were trying to hide that from the American public. Because if that was the case, they would have never had the debate. It's so obvious.
No, it's not obvious. Destiny. Here's the thing. When you have the entire
Jake, last thought.
Okay, yeah, just last thought on here. Destiny, thank you so much for the exchange. That's for sure. It was really good. But I will tell you this, guys. When it comes to the last election here, Donald Trump won this because of the fault of the Democratic Party. The assassination attempt, and then I'll even say Elon Musk even buying X did help Donald Trump.
Thank you for conceding that material reality. Who is this? What's this guy's name? Jake Var. Jake Var, while being MAGA and me having like a shitload of objections to what he's said and his ideology and all that kind of shit, he seems like the most fair Trump guy that I've heard.
Trump in the long run, right? When it was Jack Dorsey, he got kicked out, etc. So that was kind of a thing that kind of helped out there. But I think the Democratic Party shot themselves in the foot, and this is why we have Donald Trump, and people want Donald Trump right now. So that's really what it is. Destiny, thank you so much, man.
Thank you again. Yeah. Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
All right, Benjamin. Have fun.
All right, quick shill time. Like the stream, super chats if you got it, memberships if you got it, engage in chat. There's lots of funny, interesting, smart people there. Watch the VODs when the VODs come out. Also, I was going to say too, what was the other thing? Oh, Valor Media Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling Network. I'll be live there 9:30 to 2:30 EST, Monday through Friday, except for Tuesdays. Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel.
Fun.
All right. I am a liberal, but I am someone that thinks that the most important problem in America today is political polarization. I think that we really need to moderate as much as we possibly can.
True.
And so I want to talk to you about.
We need to be militantly moderate. We need to bully people with normalcy.
Like, where do you think the MAGA movement came from? Because my position here.
It's an offshoot of the Tea Party and the general dissatisfaction of the right wing with the federal government.
Is the Democrats for a long time, or I guess the establishment as a whole, has been really focused on improving material conditions. Like you even said it yourself, that MAGA all wants the same stuff. They want, cheap food, housing, ability to raise a kid. And I think that if I had to,
Correct. If the Democrats want to win back this country, they have to focus on the working class men and women of this country. They have to focus on the 50 to 60% of people who are wage slaves, who are currently making $7 to $15 an hour, who can barely pay their bills, who are working 60 hours a week. If you want to win again, that's who you need to go after. That's whose needs you need to serve. The noble obligation, the oblige noblesse.
If I had to say that what was the one reason why MAGA has risen is because people don't feel like material goods and like stability and material security, that doesn't create a narrative that you can be proud of for your whole life. Like that doesn't create a lifelong narrative. And I think people are missing that. Because if you look at the Rust Belt and who are the people that are supporting Donald Trump, like a lot of these.
Let's do this. This is going to be funny. Tags, lol, covering Destiny bullshit, supporting a serial consent violator. People like you are the reason why Harvey Weinstein and predators get away with this shit for bag more than morals. Tags, I mean this with my whole heart. Go get a fucking vasectomy so whatever retardation you fucking have doesn't get passed on to the next generation, you absolute fucking dumbass. Let's summarize it for the 50th fucking time, okay? Stephen consensually shot pornography. He was a coomer. He shared it with a bunch of people. It got he didn't have consent in order to share, allegedly didn't have consent in order to share that shit. It got leaked into the public. For you to compare that to a multi-millionaire business magnate who used his position in clout and power in order to force women to have sex with him, you're a fucking idiot and you don't know what you're talking about. Same thing with Queeman and J-Stock and Cherry and all these people who had all this fucking fire saying that Destiny needed to lose his millions of dollars. He potentially needed to be incarcerated. He needed to be added to the sex assault registry. What's their position now? Fucking 3 months later, 4 months later. It's my position. Maybe Steven has some civil liability. It'll get proven whether or not he has any civil liability in court. He's not going to be added to the sex offense registry, and he's not going to be incarcerated. And why have we not heard a single fucking peep out of Sherry in the past 4 months in reference to her criminal case? Is it because she filed a report in whatever her state of residence is, and then she decided, well, fuck it, I don't really want to travel to Miami to pursue a criminal case for a misdemeanor, so at like a wiretyping potential felony, but probably misdemeanor, so I'm not going to travel back and forth in Miami in order to pursue this, and you want me to treat this with the same degree and severity as rape? Go fuck yourself. No. Fuck off, Tags. Go hang out in J-Stock's chat. Go hang out in Queenan's chat. Shit, even go hang out in Chud's chat. You'll probably find a bunch of other fucking drama retards who have nothing better to do every single day, and you can go have fun with those fuckers. Get the fuck out of my chat, dumbass.
These people, they have homes, they have a family, like they're totally fine. Like if you look at like the purchasing power of America, we have the highest purchasing power of any nation. And it's like, so why, when we have so much material success, do people
because it's not being translated down to the working class,
not believe their eyes or something? And so it's like, I think it really comes down to people are supporting Donald Trump because the establishment is so focused on the material conditions rather than the narrative conditions.
I think narrative is important.
Ooh, he's actually not saying what I'm saying. That's interesting. I think we're in a K economy and the working class feels like it's shafted all the time. But I do agree that narrative, there's plenty of like green flags for the United States of America, and we don't really focus on them very much. Interesting.
I think another way to kind of phrase what you said a little differently, or to look at it from a slightly different perspective that I think incorporates the same kind of idea, is Democrats have kind of been focused on governing and maybe some like social movement related stuff. And Republicans have worked really hard on messaging over the past 3 decades, my whole life. It seems like Republicans have just always been really good at messaging. Like even if you think of, I grew up on like kind of the talk radio world, like the talk radio world was always way more exciting on the Michael Savage and the Glenn Beck and the Rush Limbaugh side, as opposed to like there's literally the meme of the NPR voice, right? That just sounds like a boring FM radio talk show host that, you know, talks whatever with the jazz music in the background. And I think that one thing that has changed our lives in just unbelievable ways, well, my life, I don't know about you, and I don't know about some of the people in here because you guys are younger, but like the internet has just truly in ways that nobody could have imagined, and in ways that people don't even give enough credit for, have just fundamentally altered so many different parts of society. And I think that as the internet has changed us a lot, I think one of the things we've kind of run into is a bit of that kind of crisis of meaning. I think that there is so much out there now. There are so many different pieces of discrete information of different facts that people are like hungry for somebody to come together and just weave it all together in a compelling story for you. Because left to your own devices, if you were to go online, you get the big podcasts, the Joe Rogans and your Daily Wires and your fun social podcast, but there's like a million different shows between Facebook and X and all these other things, and who knows what's right or what's wrong. And I think that Republicans.
That's liberalism. That's freedom. That's democracy, bitch. That's what I think is so funny about narrative control, is that a lot of progressives and some liberals will argue that what we need is like hyper regulation of the way that people consume information. This is democracy. This is the demos. This is the people fighting out what they believe to be true. This is the marketplace of ideas. So just because bad actors thrive in the marketplace of ideas doesn't mean shit. If you go back to like Greek studies, like Socrates spends a third of his time criticizing sophists, people who are public intellectuals who don't believe what they truly say. They just say what they know will get them clout, money, and influence. This is like a 3,000-year-old problem. So welcome to freedom, bitch. That's why I think it's so funny about like liberals and progressives complaining about the free marketplace of ideas, is because like this is at the root of your ideology, is that human beings should be free to consume information and decide for themselves. Master of Darkness says, I went to the event in New York this weekend. It was so much fun. The event got moved from the original venue in Queens across the river to the Bronx. It was hot as hell in that place. Lol. Good for you for getting out there. Urs Gontenbein. Urs Gontenbein. The bear of Gontenbein says, let's be clear. Stephen did nothing wrong. Stop saying he is bad, but no, he did something wrong. Allegedly, he videotaped consensual sex acts, and then he sent it without permission, and then it got leaked. That's what he did wrong. And Tags, the fucking idiot from earlier, says, how can you possibly like the degenerate rapist? He's not a fucking rapist, you fucking retard. Matter of fact, bye. I was going to give you a chance to say something real, but I don't fuck with that shit. I'm not going to get distracted in one guide by some person being like, Destiny's bad, Destiny's bad, Destiny's bad. Okay, he's bad, but he's funny. He's funny and he's charismatic. So we're still going to fuck with him until it's revealed that he's a serial killer. First Wave Negativity says, Jordan Peterson can say interesting stuff sometimes, but Dillahunty is just a perfect counter to his debate style. We should watch that sometime. That might be a good debate. Bucky says, JBP just seems like a BS artist. I've never seen someone talk so much and say so little of substance, but I do like it when he talks about discipline, etc. Well, sucks to say it, but I'm probably going to be way too friendly to JBP compared to you guys.
It's because I think they've completely given up on governance. They just don't give a fuck about any of that process at all. And they've only focused on messaging. They were able to come in and just capture that space so well. All of my analysis of Donald Trump, I basically shifted gears to this entirely over the last few months. I just analyze him as like an influencer. And I think that describes most of his behavior. He operates in a way that he can just capture so much attention. That's all he wants.
Right. But the reason why I think it's so important to work with Trump rather than to try to say we're going to get rid of Trump and then we're going to fix things. Like I think that's a losing proposition to say we're going to get rid of Trump and then fix things, because Trump represents taking risk. And the thing that the establishment really has tried to avoid is to avoid taking risks. We're trying to avoid further harming the most marginal communities and the most marginal populations, because when you do something radical, when you do something big, it's going to disturb the system, and the people with the least amount of resources are going to be the most vulnerable to manage that transition.
I would agree with you, but the issue is that he's just so far off in another world. That's the entire Republican Party. I know,
but that's not good. So this is what I'm saying, that if you want to engage with.
This is why I argue. Oftentimes you guys are like, oh, be a Democrat, be a Democrat, be a Democrat, be a Democrat. And it's like, number one, no, because I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting you motherfuckers about policy and shit. Sometimes I just want to say something that I think is obvious to me and then have somebody go, yeah, That makes sense. Number two is that if you just want the Republican Party to be exclusively MAGA schizos, then people like me should stop fighting for the Republican Party, and then you just have to deal with MAGA for the rest of your lives. And no offense to you or to me, that sounds like fucking hell. So let's not do that.
With the Republican Party, you have to.
I'll build coalitions with people with whom I have 60, 70, 80% political alignment, and then we'll fight about the last 20 to 30%. But I think the center right still needs to fight for the soul of the right against MAGA.
Start somewhere, and we may as well
You
start
can,
with
but the
Trump.
problem is if you negotiate almost anything with that side, you've lost fundamentally like all the aspects that make America America.
Why? That
Because Donald Trump fundamentally doesn't believe in rule of law or democracy or separation of powers or the
I
Constitution.
don't know if that's true.
Which part do you want to go into? He doesn't believe in separation of
No,
powers because he believes that he has the ability to fight with the judiciary anytime he wants. He doesn't believe in rule of
believe
law
that
because
he
he's literally has
believes in-
criminal immunity. He's a convicted felon. He's like,
I mean, I agree with you
Stop gish galloping, Stephen.
that he is not acting as if he believes in those things. However, I think he's just an opportunist, right? Like he doesn't believe in anything.
I agree. I agree with that kind of.
So so it doesn't. So
But you can't work with an opportunist. This is a cancer, right?
you can, because the whole point of liberalism is that when you work together with other people, that's the best thing for everyone.
No, the point of liberalism is everybody involved has to believe in liberalism for it to work.
Well, no, because you have like liberalism is all about individuals. It's all about how.
I actually agree with this guy more than I agree with what Stephen just said. Good job, Benjamin Murad. You're a smart fella.
Everyone comes to the table with their own idea, with their own wants. And even you can say everyone is just ultimately selfish, and still liberalism works under those conditions. That
Yes, not everybody has to be an ideological liberal in order for liberalism to work. I'm not going to like hammer Stephen over that point, but actually liberalism is designed to function even when you have bad actors. That's kind of the beauty of it.
I mean, would you consider it a liberal? If 80% of us all across the country agreed to abolish the Constitution, are we still a liberal society?
Depends on whether or not we replace it with another liberal framework.
like, what did we replace it with? Like, did we replace it with
There you go. Good job. Good job, Ben.
nothing?
With a king?
With a king?
Yeah, then you're not liberal.
I mean,
Because you could do that. I mean, our Constitution could be amended, theoretically. That is possible. I'm just saying that for liberal, something that I think people don't give enough credit for is in any given group, everybody kind of has to agree to play by a set of rules. And when you start breaking those rules, you step out of bounds a little bit can be tolerated with, and you can negotiate a person back, but you can't you can't play with somebody who wants to play completely outside of the rules. If you had a sibling,
You can when they want to play by the rules. You just don't when they don't want to play by the rules. I'm okay with this. This is an okay analysis.
and you played like
I disagree with that.
there's a difference between like playing with somebody who, like, if you played like chess with a sibling and they make a bad move and you're like, I'll let you take that back.
Well, then you just play a different game. You play the game that they want to play.
Yeah, but the game we want to play is democracy. And if they want to play a different game, we don't want to play that game. That's what I was saying. We're playing the different game means we're fundamentally losing.
You can't just assume and assert that they don't want to play democracy.
I don't have to assume it. I just listen to what he says and what he does.
Well,
Steven's doing a good job. I'm going to pause in just because chat's popping off in reference to this content now because I finally caught up with you guys a little bit. So I want to read a few chats related to this content. First Wave says, I kind of agree that MAGA is a culture. It's an anti-intellectual fascist culture, but that's the nature of populist movements and is perfectly in line with the thinking of the average person. When I use fascist, I'm very specific. I mean flexible authoritarian, which Trump 100% is, and then political corporatist, meaning you treat the nation state as a body, which Trump 100% is. I don't think Trump, though, can articulate Giovanni Gentile or the philosophy of fascism. I just think it comes to him almost naturally. I think there are fascists who are by Trump, who are capitalizing on his movement in order to implement their own agenda, including the San Francisco tech bros and people like Stephen Miller. I also think that Nick Fuentes has a lot of fascist elements to his political philosophy as well, and he's trying to get as much as he can out of the MAGA movement as well. That being said, I want to say out of the 55%, let's say the Republican Party, 55% wholeheartedly supports Trump. I would say only 10% of the Republican Party in its totality would actually either be quote unquote fascist in explicit belief, or they would be they would believe in it so much that they might be indiscernible from fascists. I think the other people are confused morons who just engage in populist rhetoric.
Like maybe he's doing that because he gets so much pushback from the Democrats, right? Like maybe he's doing that because no one actually understands.
I think that's a totally valid excuse when you're 15.
I'm not
But if
talking,
you're the
I'm not
president of the
talking
United
about
States-
Donald Trump. I'm talking about Republicans in general. That
They need better leadership.
no. Like
I like Ben. Ben's a good dude.
Democrats do not understand what Republicans want. Like no one is talking about the fact that Republicans don't give a shit about the material conditions. And they say
That's fine that they can say that, but all they cried about for the last election was material. So what are we supposed to believe? It was supposed to be the cost of everything was
no
too
one is
high.
the only person that really talked about this is Jordan Peterson. And what happened to Jordan Peterson is he got ejected. Like he got
doesn't just talk about it. He's doing a lot of crazy shit.
what I'm saying is it shouldn't just be Jordan Peterson talking about meaning and trying to put some scaffold around what meaning is, right? Like, there should be more people talking about it. And Jordan Peterson
Based, Ben. Based. Go off, King.
has his own idiosyncratic ideas
agree.
that
I
aren't all
don't
correct.
disagree with what you're saying. I'm not sure if politicians are the best place to get meaning from, because that's a
No.
But in absence of God, people treat politics like religion. Go off, Ben.
So what I'm saying is it's the fact that academia and the elite and the establishment as a whole have not given people the words to talk about their crisis of meaning.
yeah, but
Yes, Ben. Go.
I mean, usually doesn't come.
And so-
It usually comes from our culture, right?
No, a lot of
In liberalism and hedonism is not enough. Yes. Full screen time. Thank you, Josh West, for becoming a new member. I deeply appreciate it. We have hit another channel high, 300 souls. I have no idea from whence you came, but you are welcome. Please like the stream, super chat if you got it. Become a member if you want to become a member. Google search bar Valor Media Network, VALOR Media, common spelling, MEDIA Network, common spelling, and I'll be live there tomorrow. So 300 people, that's awesome. I love you. Come hang out with me tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, and then hang out with me the following Monday. Anyways, let's do the crisis of meeting real quick. Liberalism is maximal freedom from government. It has liberty in the root, and it is one of the best governing philosophies to ever hit the world. Because truth is, when free people are left to their own devices, they typically are economically and socially productive, and they pursue their own self-interest, which you can then tax and turn into a vibrant, wealthy society. Liberalism is excellent in that regard. However, without God, we have become nihilists, meaning that we don't believe in anything. Since there's no God, there's no judgment, there's no afterlife. Therefore, hedonism without God makes the most amount of sense. Hedonism is a philosophy that espouses the fact that you should maximize your pleasure and minimize your pain. There's mature hedonism and immature hedonism. Mature hedonism involves being like, well, I get pleasure from hanging out with my family, so I'm going to hang out with my family. I get pleasure from hanging out with my friends and having a couple of beers, so I'm going to do that. Immature hedonism, no offense, Stephen, is doing hard drugs and banging whores. That's immature hedonism because you're trying to maximize your pleasure. But what's ironic about that is you end up incurring more pain the more hard drugs you do and the more whores you bang. So as a result, it's immature hedonism. That is not enough to sustain a human soul. And so while I am not a religious literalist, I do not believe that Jesus Christ physically came down as an emanation of the creative force of the universe and gave us a moral code that we have to follow literally to the letter. However, I think that nested within religion, within Christianity, within Judaism, within Islam, within Hinduism, and within Taoism are moral and mythological truths that are worth analyzing and then worth incorporating into your own life. Maximally telling the truth is, generally speaking, a human good. Putting the world into order is going to make you feel better than allowing yourself to be subsumed by the chaotic nature of our plane of existence. Maintaining good relationships and being pro-social with your family, honoring your father and mother, honoring your wife, taking care of your kids. These are all things that are going to give your life meaning. And also, here's another Jordan Peterson truism, is that your life typically correlates in purpose with the amount of responsibility that you take on. So if you smoke a lot of pot and play a lot of video games, you might be having a lot of fun, but your life isn't going to seem purposeful. Whereas if you volunteer down at the local animal shelter, you rescue a dog from being euthanized, and you clean out the stalls, and you help other dogs get walked every single day, it's going to be miserable. It's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to hurt your fucking feelings. But by taking on that responsibility, you're going to have a correlated increase in purpose. And so this is where what this young gentleman is pointing to is 100% correct, is that liberalism is an excellent governing philosophy. In my opinion, it's a dog shit moral one, because it makes no prescriptions about what moral stuff you should do, as long as you pay your taxes, pay your bills, and in general aren't a totally antisocial freak. So good for Benjamin. Benjamin is a king.
A lot of the like the articulation, the way that people talk about things, it comes from the top. It comes from the people that are having intelligent conversations about it. Like liberalism didn't come from the culture; it came from academia.
True.
I could be wrong on this. I haven't studied this area, so I'm on very unsure ground. But like my guess would be more that
Me too.
That the culture dictates. So people that are making movies and music are probably going to be dictating what our conversations are, more than somebody in an academic institution writing a paper about sociology or something.
Like it comes from like those underground, like feminism came from underground academic conversations. Liberalism also, it came from like established institutions, right? And so a lot of that.
Thank you, Josh West.
Sure, but we're not.
I mean, it might not
like
be-
this
it might not be
feminism,
longer.
liberalism. We're talking about just kind of like narrative or purpose, right? It's a little bit different.
I mean, I don't know, because the feminism movement is what gave women the language and the articulation to say what their grievances were, and say it in
Go off, Ben.
an intelligent way, and say it in such a way that they got men on their side.
What do you think? Okay, what do you think it should come from?
I think it should come from academia. I think more people should have worked with Jordan Peterson, took him more seriously, and said, how do we articulate this lack of meaning? And because when there is nothing to articulate, then we're going to talk about economics. Then we're going to talk about economics. Like, of course, because if
Do you think Jordan Peterson was effective in his approach to academia, saying all of it was rigged and that he didn't trust?
I think Jordan Peterson was idiosyncratic, and he made a lot of blunders, and he was disagreeable with people, and he could have been great, but he fumbled the bag. I think.
You got about 1 minute there, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think the
Holy shit, I love Ben.
oh, I lost my train of thought.
My fault.
But guess what, Ben? If you're a Jordan Peterson fan, then you know that it's not up to Jordan Peterson in order to rescue your father from the belly of the whale. It is the job of each generation to rescue his father from the belly of the whale. So the way in which Jordan Peterson tries to reintroduce Campbellian and Jungian psychology and mythological analysis back into the world is the way in which young Ben and I have to pursue Jordan Peterson in the whale of meaning, and then bring his ideas to a way that's palatable for the Zoomers, so they don't have the same crisis of meaning that the millennials had. Probably too late, to be honest, but still very fun. The Common Good says, do you condone or condemn Destiny talking to IDF soldiers the way he did? Do you mean when he said, hey, you fucking idiots, stop carrying cameras around showing you smashing people's houses. It's probably bad for the IDF's public reputation. I'm neutral on that. I think he should probably be telling the IDF not to smash Gazans' houses, but I also think not carrying around a videotape is probably a good idea. General Ballsack says, just trans yourself counterpoints that people like denims. Lou S says, Connor, does this mean someone could upload an entire Star Wars movie to YouTube as long as they are providing a similar level of commentary as what you are doing right now? I think it's possible, Lou S. I think it's possible. Matter of fact, get back to me, because I'm launching Counterpoint Sci-Fi and Counterpoint Star Wars, where I will be breaking down Star Wars TV shows and Star Wars movies and science fiction media in a similar way. But because Disney is so litigious, I'm probably not going to do the whole movie. I'll probably only do action sequences and then do like lore dumps in between action sequences.
Paul, sorry.
Let me see if I.
You said Peterson fumbled the bag. I asked you because I feel like it's just so weird, because I feel like because Democrats are the only people who are willing to ever self-reflect, that Republicans are just unimpeachable when it comes to questioning motives or questioning understanding people. Because like Jordan Peterson would say that like, well, all these trans people, they just want to make it so that they can compel me to speak about their pronouns in this way. And it's like, that's probably not.
That's like a 6-year-old talking point, but okay, keep going.
really what most people care about, right? But like, so he's doing the exact same thing, but for some reason it's liberals that have to analyze ourselves for why we're so mean and fucked
We don't
up.
have to analyze ourselves. We're in control of academia. That's why we have to do it. We're in control of any rational thought.
Sure, but like MAGA is literally,
not.
I would say metaphorically, before MAGA was opposed to academia. Now, literally today, Trump is trying to destroy academia. So,
Well, yeah, this is the thing.
so you think Republicans are going to
We
be
need to fix this. This is critical that we fix this.
okay? But right now, Trump is trying to pull funding from places, and he's trying to blackmail places to get them to
I know.
change their curriculum and everything. So,
I don't like it, but I think if we don't do something about it, if we don't moderate,
so do you?
going to get
Is it?
there's going to be.
But you think there's a path to redemption, capitulating the ISIS?
We lost like 20 people on the Jordan Peterson rant, lol. Fuck those guys. Hedonic Treadmill says, at Counterpoints, just subbed. I was accidentally freeloading there for a minute. Great content lately. Well, I live to serve.
But he's trying to destroy.
I don't have time to. I don't have time to get into it, but I do think there is a path to redemption, like a concrete one. But I think I'll end on, like, I was talking to Trey earlier today, and he was telling me about, like, he's a very successful guy. Like, he's got a job, he's got a family, he's just became a father. So congratulations to Trey. I think, and he talked to me about, like, he's got 2 houses, he's renting out one, and so it's like, but he feels the economic strain. And so how is someone like that, someone so successful, feeling economic strain, feeling rising grocery prices? How is he feeling that? And I think it's because he feels like, and I think I feel this way, that what are we aiming toward? What are we angling toward as a society? Like, what is beyond just this material wealth? And
Yep.
it's and the thing is, of course, if you have enough money, you can create your own meaning. And so it's like when prices start going up, when housing gets harder, it's not that we're struggling to survive. It's that it's eating into my ability to go beyond.
To create your own meaning, and therefore people are having a crisis, because typically if you have additional capital, then you can engage in pleasurable activities or hobbies or family. But as soon as that starts evaporating and you don't have family or religion as a backstop, then you get fucking spiritually hurt. Yes, Benjamin is on the money.
To really tell a story that I'm proud of, and I think that those beyond me will be proud of. And I think that is something that we really need to think about more rigorously, and try to give that language to everyone, so they can say something beyond just, I don't like inflation.
Okay.
Bruh. Liberal conservative. So based.
All right, Benjamin. Thanks a lot. Excellent.
That
how's
was
it going?
that was genuinely fucking fire. I seriously enjoyed that. That was refreshing. West Coast Girl says, do you feel like you got enough credit for completely destroying Destiny in the MIB debate? He fought with the audience on his dumbass take so hard that debate was cathartic. Yeah, I got, listen, we go from 50 to 70 viewers on a slow day to 100 viewers on a good day to now we were kicking past 300. We're losing a few people because I'm sure somebody else is going live. But yeah, I mean, I would have never expected to get 300 viewers in a fucking day. That's fucking dope. General Ballsack says, why is Desi wearing BCGs? So he looks smarter. Hijamon says, why didn't we leave from Bagram or Kandahar or both? So weird to me. Yeah, probably wasn't well thought out. First Wave says, you don't want to leave until your comment gets read. Lol. Well, I can't read every single comment. I can read the ones that are like at Counterpoints, at Valor. That's how I'm sucking you in. General Ballsack says, I think I still have my BCG stowed away. These are birth control glasses. They're the general issue military glasses that are very thick. Would I be cool wearing them? I call them the Blu-ray goggles. Send me a picture on Discord or Twitter. Lol. General Ballsack says, Counterpoints are about the same age in common theater. I got knocked out by the Obama administration. Interesting. All right.
Me too. What's up?
Yeah, great. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, Jack Darko says I'm in this video. Based.
Yeah.
So,
Pull your microphone up.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of people have already made arguments that I'd come prepared with, but one thing that you said with Ben there was that politicians shouldn't be a source of meaning for people. And maybe that's right that they shouldn't be a source of meaning, but it seems like people vote with their values, and their values are attached to where they draw their meaning from in life. And so when you say that, I just want to understand what exactly you mean.
Well, you can vote for somebody because they share your values, but I think it's probably not a healthy thing if we're like looking to politicians to also be like our cultural leaders at the same time. That probably leads to a lot of unhealthy political like external negative effects, like culty behavior, I would say.
Okay, so how is it that we would then get politicians to embody our values, enact them, and
They can embody them and act them. I just don't know if they should be the ones like dictating our morals to us. Like ideally, you want them to be a reflection of your values, not the ones giving them to you.
sure, but in a two-party system, ultimately you're going to have like a divide, very binary, and people are going to end up looking to whoever it is that they're supporting, right? Blue no matter who, or I'm always going to vote for Trump because fuck the Democrats, whatever side you fall onto. So people are going to naturally fall into that, and we can argue that philosophically that's not a good way to find meaning, and I don't think people are.
I think you're misunderstanding. If you vote for somebody because they align with your values, that's fine. I'm just saying that you shouldn't be getting all of your culture and all of your meaning and all of your value from a politician. These things come from like friends and family. They could come from, if you're part of a religious movement, they could come from some type of like media that you consume, books or philosophers that you read, or movies or TV shows that you watch. Like these are the places of where you find like meaning and stuff. Hopefully you don't get that from like a politician. I think that's really scary.
Okay.
Although I disagree with Stephen fundamentally here, politicians often do convey meaning. The reason why I've identified as a Republican for 20 or 30 years is because what do they talk about? They talk about stable families. They talk about people working good jobs. They talk about reducing taxes so there's less stress on the family household. I know that's bullshit and propaganda, but it is what it is. They talk about securing the United States of America physically so there's less terrorist attacks, like all that kind of stuff. They talk about physical, economic, and social security, not like welfare programs. That's not what I'm talking about. They talk about creating a good life. So that, like, yeah, Republicans derive purpose and value through through politicians allegedly reflecting and enabling that behavior.
Saying, yeah.
Okay.
They can align with us in terms of values, and we could vote on people and with our values because they align with us in our values, but it's not like, like I really want to save the ocean because AOC made me feel like I should be an environmentalist or something.
Totally fair enough. So Trump, the MAGA cult, right? Clearly, you look at somebody like Benny Johnson, who, 7 months ago was talking about bread prices and egg prices and all this stuff, and now he's saying it's patriotic to lose money, right? Something that I heard you criticize him for.
Yeah.
But isn't it the same when you look at, say, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, something like transgenderism? Nobody was on board with that. And now it seems like almost everybody on the left is on board with that to some pretty extreme levels, right? Whether it be sports or change rooms. And that may be totally fine. But where did those values come from? They didn't believe that 15 years ago. Suddenly in 2016, everybody on the left was pro-trans or whatever.
I don't think it was suddenly. I think that it's been like a slow evolution of like LGBT stuff and then LGBT stuff over time. I don't think it was like an overnight, now we all are super pro-trans. I don't think that's the same as like Donald Trump saying something at 9 a.m. and then at 12 p.m. saying the complete opposite and everybody being on board with it. I think there's a lot of difference there. Like beliefs and views are going to evolve over time with people. I would imagine people on the left.
Also, I would make the argument that trans rights probably emanated from two philosophies. Liberalism, which is like individual rights and maximum freedom from the government. And then progressivism, effectively like looking for the change that need to be instantiated within society. And so when it comes to the trans narrative, quote unquote, the trans narrative is that, especially for adults, the government has been hostile to their existence, their discrimination from employment, their discrimination from broader society has been tolerated or even promoted by the central government. And so as a result, they've been reduced to poverty, sex work, murder, suicide, and drugs. And so they don't think it's fair that the federal government or state governments are allowed to violate their liberty as adults who are pursuing their sense of happiness. You can say that it's like a mental disorder, that gender dysphoria is like a mental disorder or whatever, but that doesn't mean that the government needs to enable their oppression effectively. That's the liberal argument. For the progressive argument, what they would argue is that trans people have been so mistreated throughout history, but also in very recent history, that there are profound injustices within their existence that need to be rectified. And so as gay people have rectified their injustices because they're a bigger population, as Black folk, Hispanic folk, Indigenous folk have rectified their injustices because they are bigger populations than trans people, then the attention has finally fallen to trans people, where even though we haven't resolved like every issue of the Native American community, Black community, gay community, bi community, whatever, it's at least resolved enough that you can have a conversation about trans rights. I think that would be the progressive line of argumentation about trans shit.
Left will probably be more progressive as time goes on socially. People on the right will push for their stuff socially. It just, yeah. Okay, I wouldn't say that it's like your values aren't rooted in some time period, and if they change at all, it was like a sudden, unpredictable change.
Okay, so Trump embodies an extreme example of what you're talking about.
Well, I think it's fundamentally different. I don't think the thing is the problem is that one, it's hard to listen to any MAGA person talk about the things they value or believe in, because it feels like at the end of the day, what they actually value or believe in is whatever Trump says tomorrow. So I can't there are no like limiting principles. Like one of the things we would debate a lot for
that's populism for you, baby.
Economics, when people were talking about presidential people would bring up, what is the economy going to look like under both people? And I thought, largely speaking, the Democrats ran it way better. And sometimes people would give me this, like, what about when Kamala said that she would do a wealth tax or tax on unrealized gains? And my response would always be, I think that's so beyond stupid. I'm not even worried about it, because there's just no way that she would be able to do it. Because if she were to go in and try to do something like that, every economic advisor, whoever the Treasury cabinet, like everybody would say, like, this is so stupid. You're not doing this. It's dumb. And she'd be like, oh, okay, fine. Because that's just how the Democratic Party operates. Whereas Donald Trump, we've seen what Donald Trump has done. He'll literally from hour to hour can change stuff internationally in ways that we didn't even know were possible. It's so abhorrent. But all the Republicans seem to more or less in the media and in the political sphere are in lockstep with his messaging, no matter what he says, even if they've got to change what they said, a few hours earlier. And that's really scary, I think.
Fair enough. I agree. And I think that Trump is like super dangerous, but to push back on the idea that it's only Trump or only MAGA that's doing this sort of cult behavior, when
too sober, too sane. Jaeger Brunette, thank you for your stuff, but I actually want to address chat before I get up, and I'm kind of running out of time, to be honest. So I'm going to read I'm going to try to catch up with chat. Thank you, Jaeger. Benjamin, I think, did an excellent job and pointed to something very real that Steven is going to have to contend with. Maybe I'll break it up. And I thought Jake Varr was fun, and Trey Salinas was smart and well-intended, but didn't get to it quick enough. So let's go ahead and wrap.
Joe Biden.
Let's just say, Steven, as always, did a pretty good job with his debates and his points. However, I think that Jake Varr was a really good MAGA articulator who seemed to be good faith. And I think that Benjamin Morad actually, as far as I can tell, hit the nail on the head. So I actually loved this segment. I thought it was fire content. Parasocial love. Have a beautiful day. Here's a salute. Have a great day. Seriously, thank you. Brilliant stream. Bye for now.